Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today we're going to jump into some inspirational quotes from one of the most impactful baseball players of all time. I'm also going to give you guys some coaching tips that I've learned along the way that can not only help coaches, hopefully, but also some of you players. So without further ado, let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome to episode number 42. I am, again, as always, grateful for you guys, and thank you so much from some of you of giving me some feedback on last week's episode as we kicked off season 6. I'm always trying to figure out, hey, man, how can we add value to your life, and how can we be of impact to you on your coaching journey and your playing journey as well for some of you too. So, and today, although we're tailoring today to the coaches, players, I know you're going to be able to get some things out of these messages too. So without further ado, let's start with the quotes. All right, from who I feel like was one of the most impactful players in the history of baseball, and that gentleman goes by the name of Jackie Robinson. Now I know we celebrate Jackie Robinson Day in April of every year at the beginning of the Major League Baseball season. But for me, this is episode number 42. And for those of you who don't know Jackie Robinson very well, he wore the number 42 very proudly. And therefore, we are going to show him some love on today's show. And I'm going to share with you 3 of my favorite quotes by him. I'm going to read them right here verbatim. And just want to talk about him a little bit. All right. So the first one, which is genuinely my favorite one by him. And it says, "A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives." And I've actually ended with this quote, ended a couple of shows actually with it on my thought you should know moment. And the way I like to sum up this quote specifically is to serve others, right? To serve other people in the best way you possibly can. Because I believe wholeheartedly, if you are not out doing for others, pouring your time into other people, and helping fill up other people's buckets, then I feel like you're really missing an opportunity to be a blessing. Which I think for Christian believers out there, I feel like that's part of our calling, right? That's part of why we're here, is to impact other people. And I think Jackie Robinson 100% lived his life that way, and not just through baseball. You begin to read about Jackie, you begin to read about how his family loved him and how they treated him, and vice versa. You all start to understand real quickly what he meant when he says a life is not important except the impact it makes on other people's lives. So, guys, serve others. That's my encouragement to you with that one. This second one is, "I'm not concerned with you liking or disliking me. All I ask is that you respect me as a human being." Now, you got to put the context of this quote, right? So this is coming in a time in the United States of America where civil rights, just it's a lot of chaos, right? It's nowhere anywhere close to where what life looks like right now, right? You had blacks, you had whites. There's obviously separation and a lot of laws and things that were in place where the respect as a human being wasn't there, right, for everybody. And so Jackie, having the courage to say that in that time, right? First of all, a big deal, right? Here's reality: for us to say that now in 2024, almost 2025, it's still a big deal for sure, but not as big of one. It's an expectation today, to respect other people with human decency and those types of things, right? But I believe that the way I like to sum that one up is to do unto others, right? Again, you don't have to like somebody. You're not going to like your teammates sometimes. You're not going to like your coaching staff sometimes. You're not going to like your parents sometimes. You're not going to like your kids sometimes. You're not going to like what they do necessarily, but you have to respect them. You have to respect them, and I think that's a great way to go throughout life. So whether you're a player, parent, coach, that's my encouragement to you on that front. And then the third one, which I love this one a lot as well, it's, "Life is not a spectator sport. If you're going to spend your whole life in the grandstand, just watching what goes on, in my opinion, you're wasting your life." And I think that is a huge way to say, just go make it happen. And I know I've said that time and time again on this show, for those of you who watch religiously, thank you. But you've heard me say, go make it happen, go be a go-getter, and don't leave anything to chance, right? If you go out and you can control what you can control, be proactive, as we talked about a little bit last week, in being able to say, hey, listen, I'm gonna take the bull by the horns and I'm gonna go get what I can get, right? Whether it's for me, my family, my friends, my constituents, whomever it may be. Don't just sit in the grandstands like Jackie said. Don't just sit in the stands and watch life happen, right? Because that's what we do when we go to a sporting event, right? One of my favorite basketball players is Steph Curry, right? I 100% plan to go watch him play at some point in the season. And you know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be sitting in the stands. I'm not going to be out there coaching. I'm not going to be out there playing, dribbling the basketball with him. I'm not going to be refereeing. None of that. I'm not in the booth commentating, announcing the game. Nothing. I paid my money to have a seat, and I'm going to sit in the grandstands, if you will, and just watch, right? I'm just going to watch everything unfold. And sometimes it's okay to do that, right? It's okay to just watch certain things unfold, all right, and just watch life happen in some cases. But in the majority of the cases, when it comes to the grand scheme of life, guys, you got to be a doer. And there's something powerful about being a doer in this lifetime. And that is a huge encouragement, guys, to you as we begin this show. Go make it happen, be a doer, and have fun doing it. Okay. So again, thank you guys so much for just listening to that portion of the show. And I hope you get something out of it. Now let's jump real quickly here into these coaching tips, because I think that these are not, outlandish or just extravagant coaching tips. These are things that I feel like I've learned along the way that I find of value. Okay, and there's 11 of them. All right, I'm going to go through the first three of them with you, and then we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and jump into the next few of them. But the first one, and first and foremost to me, is being able to establish the fundamentals. Right? If you lead with the fundamentals first, I feel like you're putting your team in a great situation to succeed, because the foundation that you're building, right? You're saying that these are the things that we're about. These are the things that we're going to do. And you can look at this from the scope of an 8U team all the way through an 18U team, or the Olympic team, right? Fundamentals are important, right? Throwing, catching, fielding, hitting, pitching, you name it, whatever the case may be, in whatever arena or lane that might be in, the fundamentals will be able to guide you throughout the course of your time as a coach. Because whenever something's off or if ever something's wrong, you can always revert back to the fundamentals, because typically that's what's off for a player. It's something fundamentally wrong, or mechanically speaking, that is a little off kilter, where you can just help them go back. Hey, listen, back at practice. Got to remember, these are the fundamental things that we focused on. Let's get back to that, and see if we can have some success from there. So, number one, fundamentals first. All right. Number two, and I hope that the players that I've gotten the honor of coaching over the years will feel like I encourage this a lot. I know sometimes it felt like maybe we didn't do it enough, but enough that I thought we could. Okay. And number two is to build team chemistry. Okay. And I say this, obviously not being sexist, but just having coached guys for a little bit and coaching girls for a longer time. I think the building the team chemistry out off the field is way more important for the girls than it is the guys. And I've seen that kind of unfold as a coach as well. And again, kind of going back to the Jackie quote there of not letting life happen, so to speak. Like, I was very intentional at times throughout my coaching career, of making sure that we just work on chemistry, because that's important. When you've got a lot of different personalities in a dugout, and you've got a lot of different agendas, and you've got a lot of different backgrounds, you never know how all of that's going to gel. Like, you can pray, right? And you can hope for it to be perfect, or some semblance of that, right? But you never know. And so the team chemistry is great. So whether that's team outings, or whatever, like, just you want to have a lot of that to create that positive environment. And I feel like that will help you know, build upon that foundation on the field. I think the team chemistry is an off the field foundation that will show itself on the field. Whether you're building it or not, it will be revealed for what it's worth. Okay. Number three, before we take a quick break here, is I think sometimes as coaches, we are, we're very heavy on like the fancy stuff, right? And I think that sometimes, guys, in practice, it's just about working and rehearsing those game situations. First and third, throw downs a second. What are we going to do there? Are we throwing it to second? Are we throwing it to third? Are we just going to throw it back to the pitcher and surrender that runner at second base? What are we doing in bunt coverages, right? Where are we, when there's a runner on first and second and there's somebody squaring a bunt, squaring around for a bunt with less than 2 outs, right? What does that look like? Okay. So I think it's good to rehearse those game situations. I say the word rehearse because I remember my time as a musical theater kid in high school, and some of you may laugh about that, some of you may rejoice and find some common ground, right? But I know for me, I enjoyed it, and I took a lot of pride in my ability to act, sing, and I could only dance this much, honestly, like a little bit. But the acting and the singing, I felt like I was pretty solid in, and what had to happen though in order for us to have great productions when the lights came on, when we hopped on stage, you got to rehearse. And the same thing applies to our game, whether it's softball, baseball, or any other sport. You got to practice and you got to rehearse. You got to put yourself in some of those game like situations. And as a coaching staff, it's important for us to be able to map that out within our practice plan so that our ladies and our guys are ready to go, man. When they're in that situation, when they're in that first and third situation, and you give them that numerical code or that color code or whatever the call may be, they're ready. It's like clockwork for them at that point. So that's what you're looking for. Right? You're looking for, okay, how do the rehearsals translate to the production? Okay, in theater terms, how does the practice translate to the game in sports terms? So with that being said, guys, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to jump back in here and give you 4 through 8, and we'll see where this can go. Be right back, guys. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So, as promised, we're going to jump through numbers 4 through 8 here on my list. And number 4 is my players absolutely love this. Just kidding. Focusing on conditioning, though. Okay. I can't stress this part enough because I've seen other teams wear out in tournament settings. Whereas, for us, I feel good typically about our conditioning because we do it. We do enough conditioning, at least from a travel ball setting that you think you can do there, to where I feel like we should be ready through game 6 or 7 after a very, very long 12, 13, 14, 16, 18-hour day. Right. And so the conditioning part, guys, is important. And it's not just about the endurance of a long day, but it's about the strength, right? Your ability to, you know, muscle a ball out of the infield, for example, right? Like being able to get in the weight room and being able to, put yourself in a situation where you can really do some damage to another team because you're just physically better, right? And there's something about that, right? Now, of course, now you can't just show up and and look physically better, right? You gotta go out and produce. But once the game begins to unfold, the team that is in better physical shape can definitely take an advantage when the time comes for that, and I think that's important. And my goodness, let's not even talk about speed, right? If you add speed and agility and incorporate that into your workouts, incorporate that into your practice plans or winter workout plans as we approach the colder part of the year, you never know again where that can lead your team because to me the sky's the limit. Speed is some say it's not taught, right? And to some degree, like, you can't really teach speed, but you can definitely teach smarts. And that's what's going to lead me into my next one is the fifth thing I believe is to teach people what strategy looks like. Like, let your players understand the why behind what you do. And I think that, to me, that is a game changer. When my players, I feel like my players have been at their best when they know what I'm going to do in a situation before I even put the call out to them, right? They already know they're stealing in this situation 8 to 9 times out of 10. And so mentally, when they get on first base, they're probably shocked if I don't give them the steal sign. Well, what does that mean for them? And what does that mean for us as a team? Their body is ready, their mind is ready for the call. When they get the call, okay, great, it's like clockwork, we're moving on. Right? So understand the why. Why are we bunting in this situation, coach? Why are we stealing a bag in this situation, coach? Why are we surrendering this run? Right? Why are we trading a run for an out in this situation? Right? Why are we not wanting to trade a run for an out in this situation? Why are we playing in with bases loaded and nobody out at the end of the game? Right? I think understanding those game situations, understanding the strategy behind things is a great way not only to teach the game, but it's I think it's a phenomenal way to be on the same page with your people across the board, whether it's the rest of your coaching staff, or your players or what have you. It can really take you to another level. And again, I feel like when our teams, the Elite Diamond softball organization that I started back in 2019, over the years, when our team has been at its best, it's been because I feel like we're all on the same page, and we're step by step, we're locking step together, and it's working flawlessly, right? And when you get a well-oiled machine like that, where the chemistry is on board, you've got the foundation built. Obviously, they understand the why behind what you're going to do, and they know what you're going to do before you even do it. It's great. By the way, the opponent is oblivious typically, right? So anyway, teach strategy. The sixth one here is positive reinforcement, and that's one that's key because sometimes I know for me, guys, I get way intense in a game setting. Now in practice, I'm focused on teaching, right? I'm in teacher mode, and when I'm in teacher mode, I give grace, right? I give way more grace in practice than I do in a game because that is the time to be loose, right? And let yourself, you know, learn, right? Learn a little bit more. And if you make a mistake, fine. But again, let's get back out there and keep working on it until we get it right. Okay. And when you're doing that, the positive reinforcement is to me is critical because your players have to know if coach believes in them, number one, but also they need to know when they're doing things the right way. Because what happens when they know they're doing it the right way? Well, they're gonna try their best to repeat that action, right? In the game situation, although I don't give as much grace in a game because I know what we've rehearsed, right? Even if you make a mistake or mess up or whatever in the game situation, fine, let's move on, right? You got 25 seconds to flush it and let's get after it. Now, as soon as they begin to get back on the boat and they do something positive and they're ready to rock and roll, right? We've got that positive reinforcement right there in our back pocket, ready to deliver. And now they're back in a good headspace. Okay. The next one for me is being able to give individual attention to your players. And I think that's important, right? Um, the positive reinforcement kind of ties into that a little bit, but I don't look at my players, guys, as one big unit per se. Okay. Hear me out for a sec, right? We are a team. We are one team and one unit. But there are times where your players may be going through something individually that you need to address with that person specifically. It's not a team address thing. It's just specifically for them so that they can get over a hump that they may be dealing with. Because when I feel like when you personalize your style of coaching to who you have on your team, then I believe that one, it's making you a better coach, but also it's allowing you to tailor the way that you coach your players. You're able to tailor it directly to them, and pretty much you're able to elevate their game, right? Because some people may be here, some people may be here, and you're not trying to hold this person back just to help this person catch up. No, you need to be elevating both of their games. Right now, maybe this person eventually catches up, which would be great. Everybody's on the same level and we're good. But it doesn't always work out that way. And so having that personalized coaching will really add the most value to a lot of your players. And I think that takes an intentional amount of effort, right? As a coach to say, hey, you know what? It's not just a blanket statement every time I address the team. Sometimes I'm addressing somebody specifically, or sometimes, for me, I may be addressing somebody specifically and I may say it in front of the whole team, right? I may call them out on the carpet, or I may be talking about them in front of the entire team with them standing there and without anybody necessarily knowing who I'm talking about except for them. They know that I'm talking about them in that moment, whether it's good or something constructive or whatever the case may be. But either way, sometimes that may be the way you address it. But a lot of times you're putting your arm around that person, you're pulling them aside, and you're letting them know, hey, here's what we can do better, or here's what you're doing great, and I need you to know that, right? The fifth one here, or the eighth one really, but the fifth one here before the break is lead by example, and I think this one is, I mean, they're all important to me, but this is a big one as well because I think your players begin to emulate what you do ultimately. Your players are a reflection of you. So I know that sometimes I can be charismatic, I hoop and holler, I can be emotional at times, especially with the umpires because I have a background with being an umpire, a referee, or what have you. And so anyway, I'm not gonna get in that get in that dialogue, but I think your players are a reflection of you, and I think it's good to have good sportsmanship as much as you possibly can, especially to other young people, right? You don't ever want to be disrespectful or condescending to anybody, your players, the opponent, no matter what. Same thing with the coaches, the umpires. Respecting everybody on the field and then respecting the integrity of the game is ultimately where you want to be on that front. And so I feel like when you lead by example with the way that you carry yourself and as well as your words, right? You're setting your team up for a position of success in terms of their mental, right? And as much as we talk about the physical aspect of the game, there's nothing more important than the mental play because I mentioned earlier, sometimes you can revert back to those fundamental mechanical things that may need to be tweaked for a player here and there. But sometimes it's really just their mental, man. I've seen players have the most beautiful, perfect swing. Everything is looking flawless in BP. And then they step in the box with a pitcher in the circle, and it's like, all that flies out of the window, right? So again, sometimes it's the mental aspect of it, and I think that with us being able to lead by example and to help their mental is a big deal. So anyway, guys, let's take one last break, and once I jump back in here, I'm going to share my last three tips with you for coaching, along with my thoughts you don't want it. Be right back, guys. All right, guys, welcome back to the show one last time. So, the ninth one on my list here is to encourage fun. Okay. And I laugh and kind of cut up and giggle about this one because I know, as I've mentioned before, I can be intense at times. I know there are coaches out there who are super laid back and maybe they're drier on certain things or what have you. But, for me, I want to encourage the fun, right? Winning is a priority. Going to college for some people, that's a priority. Learning the game at the highest level and the mental as possible, that can be a priority. But fun and enjoying the game should also be a part of that priority list. And if it's not, then add it to the list for yourself as a coach because if it ain't fun, man, it's probably not worth it. I'm just gonna be honest with you because there's a lot of things that we can be doing out there that are not fun, right? That we can take too seriously. And but softball and baseball is not on that list. Like we ought to have fun. We ought to enjoy it. Now there's work, there's grind and all that jazz that's involved, but mixed in there, sprinkling in some opportunities for fun, man, being able to keep the practice engaging and lively and keeping games and tournaments and what have you. A good atmosphere is always great. I think it's good vibes, right, will help. And I know that, a lot of times, man, if you look good, you play good. If you feel good, you play good, right? And a lot of times, that feeling, man, that vibe that you're getting from your team, that you're getting from your coaches, if everybody's having fun, man, usually the results will work themselves out. Whether you're winning or losing a lot, you can look back on the experience as a whole and say, hey, man, I enjoyed my time with this group of people. And ultimately, 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, that's what you're going to remember. You're going to remember the feelings that you had. Was that fun? Was it worth my time of growth and grind with that set of people? So I think as a coach, that should be on the priority list for sure, because it's been on mine. And although sometimes I know I can fall short of it, right? I'm not perfect by any means, but I do give a good effort, a concerted effort to, you know, be fun, right? For everybody. All right. Number 10, the one before the last one. And I think this is also one where younger coaches, and again, I'm a young coach by age. I'm in my 20s still. And, but I've coached for almost a decade now on the softball side of things. And here's what I know. Okay. The very thing that we encourage our players to do a lot of is to continue to grow, right? Continue to learn, continue to grow and do more. As coaches, we ought to be doing the same exact thing, whether that's reading books, attending clinics, watching videos, film study, whatever, everything under the sun, finding new drills, right, to add. If you know that a player is struggling with something, either create a new drill or find a new drill, right? But do something that can potentially add value to your players, and your team as a whole. And so you've got to stay connected. You got to stay updated, ears to the ground, and you got to know, man, whenever the next drill pops up or the next, whatever, right? And I'm not saying you got to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff and new tools and equipment. I don't want, I know some people go overboard on it. They're always buying the fancy new gadget. Don't need to do that, right? Sometimes it's just turn on YouTube. I'll be honest with you. Some of my drills have come directly from the great Mike Kendria. And if you don't know who Mike Kendria is, he spent a Hall of Fame legendary career at the University of Arizona coaching softball there, and he also coached Team USA for quite some time. And he's got some of the best drills, right? I mean, gosh, he national championship with Arizona and Olympic champion with Team USA. So obviously the staff around him, as well as himself, obviously they know a few things, right? So I've gotten some of my drills directly from Kendria and some of his teachings right off YouTube. And these are like 10, 12, 15-year-old YouTube clips, right? But they still work just as they did then, right? So staying updated is a big one. Here's my last one. And this is funny. And my players, some of you are watching this. First of all, before I go to this last one, I'm going to give a shout out to one of the players that, guys, I'll be honest with you. This was a player at the very beginning of her time with us that I was not sure if it'd work out. I wasn't sure. And neither was my assistant coach at the time. We were not sure. And I don't even know if she was sure if it would work out. And guys, I'll tell you, man, before I reveal her name, she has become one of my favorite players to watch unfold in terms of her journey. Not just on the field, but also off the field. The level of maturity and the growth that she's had has been tremendous. Now, I can say that about a lot of different players, right? And you can say, oh man, yeah, this player's improved here, this player's improved there. But when I say this player is like legit most improved, and not only is she most improved to me in my eyes, from what I've ever seen anybody grow in such a short amount of time, but really she's grown into somebody who can be one of the most valuable players on any team that she's on. And her name's Maya. Okay. And right now in her senior season, Maya is our leadoff batter, and she's also our shortstop, which is crazy to think about. If you know where she started when she was with us, right? She was fourth option at catcher, and that's it, right? It wasn't catcher, utility player, utility catcher. It was just fourth option at catcher, and that's it. Now I feel confident, obviously putting her behind the plate. She's really our number one option there. She's become our number one, number two, 1A, 1B option at shortstop. If we had to put her in the outfield, we could put her out there too. She would admit her speed is probably not the greatest in the world to be out there a bunch. But what I tell you though, man, is that she has become a defensive specimen, right? A utility player through and through, and it has been beautiful to watch. Oh, by the way, I just mentioned she's our leadoff batter. Okay. And the crazy thing about this is that this isn't just something that was sparked this year specifically. I saw it unfolding in her very first summer with us, her clutch hitting at times. She began to take at bats from some of our veteran players during her, I guess, her sophomore season with us, right? And so I'm going, okay, yep, she's kind of trucking up the ladder a little bit, even more, even more, even more. And now, as a senior, she's our leadoff batter that can drop bombs if we need it. She's going to always make a lot of contact, right? And she's always going to give the team a chance to win games. And I'm just going to say, man, I am incredibly proud of that young lady. And Maya, you deserve all the kudos and all the shout outs that I could possibly give you, as well as every other coach that's ever had the honor and pleasure of coaching you. So anyway, a little tangent there for a shout out to my girl Maya. But I'm going to give you guys my last coaching tip for us young coaches out there. And the reason I chuckle about this one is because I was taking notes the first couple of exhibition games this season and for our team, and I would take it in between innings when we're on defense. And when the ladies would come off the field, I would share my notes with them, and we would kind of go over them briefly within a 30 to 45-second debrief, right? And they would kind of focus on that, and we go from there. Well, a couple of times we just had a couple of rough innings where just the communication was abysmal, right? And so in all caps, exclamation point, I think I maybe put a smiley face on it or something like that, but it says communicate, right? That's literally what the note said. And, I think I maybe did it 2 or 3 times, right? And I feel like now, like they understand that that's the standard that we want and that we need for our team to be successful, is that we have got to communicate. And as a coaching staff, I believe it's important for us not only to encourage the communication amongst themselves, but we have to do a great job and an effective job of communicating with them, right? Because our ability to effectively communicate affects their ability, right, to be receptive to what we're delivering to them, right? Because here's the thing with that, it doesn't matter what your message is at times. It just matters how it's received at times, right? You can be given the best message in the world. You can be saying something till you're blue in the face. But if it's not communicated properly, then it's not really going to resonate with the team the way that you would hope it to, right? Therefore, it's null and void at that point. So effective communication can make or break a team 9 times out of 10, right? Sometimes teams can out talent your ability to communicate as a coach, but a lot of times teams need you to be able to communicate effectively with them. And obviously teams, players, you guys, if you're still watching, you need to be able to effectively communicate with your teammates as well as your coaches. All right. So that's number 11, guys. The last thing I got for you is my thought you should know moment. And my thought you should know moment today is just sharing with you guys. At practice the other night, where it's daylight savings time here in Georgia, and we've started practice at 6 p.m. and 6 o'clock the lights are already on because it's freaking dark already, right? So we go 2.5 hours at practice once or twice a week. And man, I'll tell you, I think we had half the team at practice the other night. So we had 8 players at practice the other night. And, I kid you not, man, it was one of the most genuinely fun practices I've ever been a part of. Players are cutting up with each other. We got some in practice games, so it's a light vibe, but we're getting work done. And I tell you, man, though, to me, when we get those work hard sessions in, and it's also fun for the players, I'm seeing smiles and I'm seeing good vibes and I'm seeing progress on top of that. you got me locked in. I can go for another 3-4 hours as a coach. Like for me, I'm like, how long y'all want to stay? Now I know they're ready to go home, but for me, I'm like, how long do you want to stay? Because I can be here all night. If we're making progress and we're putting smiles on faces while doing it, I'm feeling like we're in a good place. So that is my thought you should know moment to wrap this up for you as coaches and as players, man. You can absolutely go out, have a good time, enjoy what you do, and make progress all in the same picture. So that is my encouragement to you the next time you step on the field is that you combine the fun with the focus. And if you can do both of those things at the same time, that's a recipe for a really, really good day. So with that being said, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this show. I hope you've got something from it. And we're going to wrap this thing up like we always do. So please let absolutely every single thing you do be done in love. Because at the end of the day, that is truly what makes this world go round. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.